I'm going to speak in Italian and after I'm going to speak in English.
Float like a butterfly and sting like a bee.
That is great.
Buongiorno ragazzi e benvenuti a un nuovo appuntamento di Sting Like a Bee. Oggi abbiamo veramente un ospite molto speciale perché è stato il primo apicoltore al mondo ad aver smesso di usare i trattamenti contro la varroa. Okay? Ha iniziato già negli anni 90 dove tutte le persone, tutti gli apicoltori credevano che senza l'uso dei trattamenti le api non potevano sopravvivere. Invece lui ha dimostrato al mondo apistico che tutti si sbagliavano, no? È stato ospite di Apimondia perché ha fatto un lavoro di selezione enorme sulle proprie colonie e è stato anche il primo apicoltore a praticare un'apicoltura commerciale, quindi non usava i trattamenti e nello stesso momento gestiva l'azienda commerciale che aveva di apicoltura. Possiamo dire che è stato anche uno dei primi che ha utilizzato anzi ha provato i primi medicinali contro la varroa nel mondo, quindi li ha testati, però successivamente ha cambiato strada e ha deciso che il trattamento non era più quello che voleva fare. Quindi ha iniziato un lavoro di selezione molto importante per arrivare ad avere delle api che resistono alla varroa. E oggi insieme scopriremo un po' dei suoi segreti. Hello, Mr. Kefuss.
Hi. How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you.
Okay.
I'm very happy to have you here with us, and I know that I say later that you are a master beekeeper, so you have
Like I say, I'm a master of making mistakes.
Okay.
That's why I'm a real expert.
You have doing very important work on the selection of the colonies, and I know that you are one of the first beekeepers that don't use medicine against varroa. So I want to ask you first of all how that you get passionate about bees and the beekeeping.
Well, actually, I started keeping bees when I was 11 years old.
Ooh.
And of course, now I'm 78, so you can do the calculation and see how many years I've been working with bees. But I got into working bees because I like to eat honey, and I didn't have money to buy honey.
Okay.
And so I figured if I had some colonies of bees, I could have all the honey to eat that I wished, which turned out to be the case. So let's say I got into beekeeping through my stomach.
Ah, okay. When you are hungry, you work very well.
Right.
It's beautiful. And you also, we have speaking about that you are the first person that you don't use treatments on the bees.
Mm-hmm.
And you start in the 80s, if I remember well. Oh, 90s.
90s, yeah.
90s. And how that... I know that you have, how can I say, you start with a normal beekeeping business when you use treatments and other stuff.
Yes.
When you decide that you don't need no more to use treatments and you want to start beekeeping without this poison.
Well, actually, we helped develop the first treatments for treating bees with Wolfgang Ritter in Freiburg, Germany. He came down to Toulouse and we tested out various chemical products.
Okay.
And of course, you have a dosage effect there, and I was seeing that at certain dosages there, those chemicals were not very good for the bees.
Okay.
But anyhow, I continued using those, and then over the years and going to different bee meetings. One year I went to a bee meeting, and beekeeper told me, he said that he just finished treating his bees and he had a bad headache. And I thought I'd noticed the same phenomena also, because when I treat with the chemicals with the vaporization, after the treatments, I feel like somebody hit me in the head with an iron bar. But I thought it was only psychological because I knew I was working with a chemical product.
Yes.
But when several other people told me that, then I thought, well, maybe it's not psychological. Maybe there's a bigger problem to it. And so I made a simple calculation. You can make it also. I figured that if I was going to have to change my brain due to chemical damage, calculate how much it cost me to buy a new brain. And at that time, they didn't have brains for sale.
Yes.
And I'm not certain I could afford to pay out the good money for a brain, even if they were for sale.
Yes.
And so I decided, good, that was either going to be me or the mites. And so let's say that the mites and I have been engaged in a constant battle since then. And sometimes the mites get the advantage. Usually I get the advantage.
Okay.
But for me, it was a personal decision. I didn't wish to have any get advanced cases of Alzheimer or things like that due to the chemical treatments.
Yes, I understand. You don't you're not scared when you start to not use the treatments. You don't was scared that you don't have colonies after a while?
Well, I made the following calculation. I figured that to do a breeding program, if I had a 10% survival rate, then I could do a breeding program.
Mm-hmm.
And if in the worst possible situation, if the colonies were wiped out, I could always buy swarms from France or from Italy.
Oh, okay.
Back in the going. The main thing is that when you're doing this type of work, is you have you know how to respond to a bad situation. You have alternatives, and so, like I say, I figured that for me it was easier to just not treat and see what happens.
And see what happens. Yes.
Right.
You have started with. I read your study, and I understand that you start with the intermissa.
Yeah, actually, we got into this resistant work with Wolfgang Ritter. He was working in Tunisia, northern Africa, and in the one area there, the varroa mite came in, but the beekeepers didn't have the money to buy the chemical products to treat. And the result was that they had colony losses, but then afterwards, the bees started to recover and were producing honey.
A natural selection.
A natural selection. And so the question Wolfgang had was this just a chance thing, or is it genetic, or what is it?
Yes.
And so we ran an experience here in Toulouse. We imported, Wolfgang sent us queens from Tunisia.
Okay.
And then the Germans from Oberusel and I think from Berlin also sent us Carnica queens, and we put those at a bee yard together and tested, and we didn't treat, and we'd see what happened. And so what happened the first year, we had 12 colonies of each group. At the end of the first year, there was only one Carnolian colony alive, and I think about 9 or so intermissa colonies alive.
Okay.
And so we thought, well, that Carnolian colony is going to die out this winter, and then we'll just publish the paper and with the results. But the problem is that Carnica colony didn't die out.
Yes.
And so we waited year after year after year. It was still going, and so I think we started that in 1998 or something like that. About 2004, we decided to publish the paper on that and show the results. And that indicated to me at the time that not only the intimacy bees had resistance, but also in the carnelian bees, there are bees that have resistance also.
All the subspecies, we can say. All the subspecies can have some genetic traits against varroa.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so it was after that, that was when I went to the bee meeting, and the beekeepers were talking about having bad headaches. And when you get headaches with those chemicals, you really feel it. Like I say, when you're hitting the head with an iron bar, it hurts.
Yes.
And and so I decided, good. I knew from my experience with the intimacy bees that they had genetic traits in there. I know that also in the carnelian bees there were genetic traits, and so I decided just simply to stop all treatments in my other colonies. I had about 300 to 400 colonies at that time, and see what would happen.
Okay.
And what happened was, first year, not much happened. And then in the second year, we started to see a little bit of damage there. Third year, a lot of colonies died out. We lost about 2/3 of the colonies.
Okay.
But we had 1/3 of the colonies remained. And since I only needed 10% of my colonies to do a genetic program, that was 3 times as many colonies as I needed for doing genetic work.
Yes.
And so we just continued on like that. And what we did was we just measured the varroa mites on the bees and the brood and that. And when you look at the data over the years, you see that there's a gradual shift in the curve from more mites to the left. Actually, I don't know if you can see that there.
Yes, I remember. I see the study.
That's the bee curves. You see that there's a gradual decrease going over to less.
Yes.
And so I was just going to point out that with very simple methods, you can get good results.
Yes.
One of the problems I think many beekeepers have is they think it's too complicated and all that.
Maybe, yes, you are right. You are right. And they are scared, I think.
Of course they're scared. Like I say, I had the advantage that being a queen breeder, I knew I could rebound quickly if I ran into problems because, like I said, I could just buy swarms from Italy or from somebody or here in France and get off to start again. But not everyone who produces honey can do that.
Afford it.
And like I said, this is a choice I made, but
you have very big results.
Yeah. At that time, a lot of people were afraid also of the fact that I wasn't treating.
Oh.
One of the problems I started to run into was not having enough mites in my colonies for infecting. And so for 2 years in a row, I put an advertisement in the French bee journals, the Bellier de France and Revue Française d'Apicolture, to advertise to buy mites.
Oh my God.
I was wishing to buy mites by groups of 100, get 100 mites in and shake them into the colonies and let it go.
Yes.
But I only had 2 people responded over these 2 years. One said, sorry, I just treated all my colonies and so I don't have any mites. And the other one said, you can come to my place and pick up all the mites you wish. But my idea was just simply to buy them because everyone said they were overflowing with mites, and so I thought it should be easy to get mites. But it's like any type of research work. When you try to do something, just like trying to infect the colony with American foul brood, sometimes it takes a lot of spores to infect it, and it's not so simple.
Yes. You start with the intermissa, and after you make this project on your colony, you have other species, subspecies of bees. Yes,
we were at that time. I was rearing mated queens. We had Italian queens, we had Caucasian queens, we had carnelian queens, we had French black bees. So we had a nice big mix of races.
We can say that you use a hybrid.
Yeah, the if people would wish for instance, in Italian, it was hybridized with probably with Italians, but also with Caucasians, Carnolians,
Okay.
and black
Okay.
bees, and
How
we
it's
even
how it
we
was
even
how it was possible to have so many types of bees? Because, for example, here in Italy, we have the problem that we cannot bring another subspecies.
well, at that time it was possible.
Ah, okay, okay,
At that time it was possible, and that I'll show you something. I had a colleague, Nico Königer, in Germany. He's from Oberusel. He and I studied together under Rittner. They were running a project, and they needed to have bees from the United States, and from Tom Rinderer.
okay.
And they were not allowed to officially import those into Germany.
In Germany.
But due to the Schengen Agreement, I could import them into France without any problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sent them on to Germany.
Okay.
And so everything was legal.
Okay.
Paperwork was complete. And the queens came to Toulouse. I looked at them. And then a few minutes later, then they got sent off to Germany.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And now the laws changed a little bit more, but at that time it was very open for queens.
Yes.
I'd even get queens in for royal jelly queens from China and things like that.
Ah, okay. Because, for example, here in Italy, we don't have a program for colonies that resist varroa. We don't have any program. So the beekeeping association they don't start like such a program. So
Well, the thing is that you've got Italian bees, you've
Yes.
got good Italian bees, and the beekeepers can start their own program on it. It's not that difficult. It's just you sit back and you say, good, I have, let's say if you have, for example, to make it easy, you have 100 colonies of bees, you choose out the 10 best and you don't treat those. Well, good. And if you wish, treat everything else, but don't treat the 10 best. And then you see what happens. And then you continue to select from those that are good honey producers and don't have any mites. And it'll take you about 3 years to get the results out. Why? Excuse me, because first year you get the queen in, and the next year, then that queen's producing drones. And they're mating with the new queens.
yes.
And that's in the third year that you're going to start to see whether you're making progress. And the problem is a lot of people think you click the finger and it goes like that.
No, it's not.
Not like that.
But you need, for example, isolated apiary on.
No, actually, I prefer not to have isolated apiaries because I need the mites from other beekeepers.
Okay.
This is a
Okay.
big problem.
Yes. Yes.
I'll give you a good example. I had a neighbor beekeeper, Mr. Osei. He told me, he said, John, he said, I can get about 4 or 5 years out of one strip of amitrettes.
Mm-hmm.
He's my neighboring beekeeper there.
Yes.
And he says that every year I just scratch it a little bit and then put it in the hive, and I don't have any problems with mites. But I think what was happening was that his queens were playing around with my drones.
Okay.
And he didn't need it. But from the psychological standpoint, he was happy because he had all those, he had his treatments, and he didn't have any mite problems.
Might. Yes. How it was born, the Bond test? You like the film of James Bond?
Yeah, I like James Bond film, and also I think maybe Wolfgang Ritter had also suggested it to me. But it's a little bit like our case: live and let die. That's what we're doing. It's
yes,
and it's I won't say it's a lazy man's way of beekeeping, but testing. But you don't do anything.
yes.
A lot of people, it's very difficult not to do anything.
For example,
Here.
yes. For example, here in Italy, the beekeeping association, they say always that if you don't treat the colony, all the colony, they're gonna die. So I think that
The problem is, yeah,
yes,
yeah. The problem is that that's what they said here in France also, but it's we point out that it showed it's possible.
yes,
And
yes,
you're going to have some colonies that are die, but there's a lot of genetic variability in the colonies.
yes,
And you, the only way you can get that genetic variability is to expose the bees to conditions where it will be expressed.
yes,
It's just like there are probably different types of resistance to the mites. It's like I've got a Toyota truck from 1980, runs real good, and but if there's a problem with the spark plug, it won't advance. If there's a problem with the wheels, no air in the wheels, you can't advance. And so on the breeding programs, that's like you just find something that disturbs the normal functioning of what it's supposed to do, and you can have a type of control for resistance, and it's like that with the mites.
yes, yes.
And
I think that the beekeeping association here in Italy, they have a business for the medicine. So always they say you need to buy some medicine, because if you don't treat, the colony die. All the problem that we see in a colony is because the colony has varroa. You understand? This is it's very strange. And I see, for example, that the beekeepers and the beekeeping association, they don't speak about your work, about the work of other person that they don't treat. So they have they want to speak only about the varroa. If you don't treat, the varroa kills your colony. So you think that all the people are afraid, you know? So
yeah, well, it's an easy way out, and like I say earlier, I treated also. I even made my own inserts and things like that, because the inserts that they were selling were too expensive for me, even though I helped to develop the doggone things.
yes, yes,
And but like I say, it's a matter of sitting back and reflecting and saying what's more important, your health and the health of others,
yes,
or your bees there. And of course, maybe some people prefer the bees, but like I say, when it comes down to chemicals, least amount of chemicals you can have in your system, the better.
The problem that today the beekeepers, they don't have only the problem of the varroa, they have also the problem of the nature of the food source, that the bees they don't have nothing to eat. So the beekeepers have a very big problem, not only the varroa. And you see something strange inside this colony that survive varroa. They were, how can I say, a little bit smaller. They swarm frequently. This kind of
thing. I wouldn't say that.
Oh,
I wouldn't say that they're smaller, and I wouldn't say that they swarm more frequently either. Maybe whoever was doing that type of work saw something like that, but that's not our case, because you have to remember we're selecting for commercial traits, and commercial traits means low swarming and maximum honey production.
Yes.
And it's been a number of years now since I've really seen any swarms. Of course, we do a lot of stuff with the bees there, but and then one thing that's been apparent to us also is that before we used to see at the beginning a lot of deformed wing virus.
Yes.
Now we don't see it anymore.
Okay.
We don't see it anymore, and and so that's an effect also. It doesn't say that we don't have a deformed wing virus in the colonies. We're working on a research project right now with the university up in Ghent, Belgium, viral transmission in honeybee eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And so this last year we sent them a bunch of frozen eggs for testing, and they said that on the deformed wing virus, when you have an infestation rate of 6, or I guess 6 million, then that's more or less a normal condition. But we're running in most of the colonies, we tested under 5 or 4.8 million. Some don't have anything.
Oh, okay.
Which means that they have very low infestation rates, because these are exponential values. And so it's if you have 5, if you have 6, it's 10 times that, etc.
Yes, yes.
But like I say, it's what's important is just sit back and watch and measure and get good results, and take the time to do it correctly. Might take a little bit of time, but it's a lot cheaper in the long run.
Yes. You have used some different type of hives, or you use only the commercial hives like Langstrong on the other?
Yeah, we're on Langstroth. When I'm from Ohio, we always had Langstroth colonies. But my customers are, for instance, mainly in Dedant colonies. But I'm used to using Langstroth.
Okay.
And everyone, but I don't. I've seen bees survive quite well in a gasoline tank of a truck, and so bees can survive under all sorts of conditions.
Yes. Because I see, for example, now also I use with my bees a natural beekeeping, so I use some other type of hives, like the Tobar hives, the Varai hives, and other stuff.
Yeah.
And one characteristics of the natural beekeeping is that we don't treat the colony, so we are like you in a little bit, because it's a natural selection that works for us. But also we have these characteristics of the natural beekeeping that we hope that can help us about varroa. For example, we have the colonies. Our colonies are a little bit smaller, and they swarm frequently because the volume is a little bit it's small.
Volume is smaller, yeah.
So I can say that in you make how can I say natural beekeeping by selecting your bees. So a little bit are like us.
We can like I say, if have some in Poland, they do a lot of bee tree beekeeping.
Yes.
They even cut trees and
yes,
some out and hang them up there, and
yes,
for natural beekeeping. And this is an excellent idea to spread resistant genes around.
Yes,
it doesn't cost much.
Yes, I know. It's I like it because I see the works of some person that they reinsert the bee colony in this hollow tree. So it's beautiful, because this is, we can say that this is the life of the bees, because the bees need to a hollow tree. So,
and you figure a hollow tree has much thicker walls
yes,
than a beehive.
Yes.
And so you have a better heat situation in your hollow trees. Of course, if you got to pull it up to the top of the tree and lower it down to extract the honey, that makes a lot of work. But,
yes, I know. I know. Speaking about the selection, I know that you have choose the frozen brood test.
Yes.
And I know that also exists the pin test. Why do you choose the frozen brood?
For two reasons. The frozen brood test is more conservative in results than the pin test. Okay. But there's another thing that's even more important, is that I can cut out the pieces of frozen brood and put those in the freezer.
Yes.
And at the end of the bee season, then I can just sit down and count those things out. If I have to do that during the bee season, then that's going to take a lot of time. I calculated out how much time it takes to count out a brood sample,
Okay.
and probably some results on that, and and so that way I can test a lot of counties in one day, and then during the time that I'm before I get to count them, those counties are undergoing other selection effects also from the lack of treatments, and so then I can see then what's coming out of those. I freeze the bees and I freeze the and the brood, and then, like I say, in fall of the year, then I'll sit down out the farm and just start counting, and
Yes.
takes me about 10 minutes to do a bee sample, about 30 minutes or so, or a little bit longer, to do a brood sample.
Yes.
Of course, if there's no mites in the broods, then it's a lot faster also, and so my
Yes,
counting times have been going down because less mites in the brood.
in the
When there are a
brood.
lot of mites in the brood, then it takes a long time to count.
Okay. You think that your bees are a perfect ecotype?
No, I don't think that any bee is a perfect ecotype, because the ecotypes are going to be moving all the time. With you have your climate changes. You got to have a bee that can adapt,
Adapt.
and you just don't. One of the problems I think is that some beekeepers have an idea this is a perfect bee that I must have. For instance, like the Carnica bees. A lot of German keepers are saying. Remember one German bee journal? They said Carnica is the best, at the top of the journal all the time. But you have to be careful when you're selecting for ecotypes. I'll give you a good example from Robin Moritz. He used to have the bee lab up in was it Hohennorendorf in Germany there, and he studied some Swiss bees that were selected for Swiss Carnica bees. They had all the traits of the Carnica,
Okay.
but when he did a DNA analysis, they were French. They were black bees. They weren't Carnica bees.
Okay. Okay.
And you have to remember, when you're selecting, you've got these curves, and if you're selecting on one end, you're going to be shifting your curve over to
Yes.
those characteristics.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
doesn't mean that the genetics you have are the same, correspond to the genetics of what you think you're selecting for.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes.
like, there's a long way, a lot of ways you can go wrong and get off in the wrong directions. And I think one of the problems is if people try to select for too much of a characteristic, that they think is important. Maybe it's important for them, but maybe it's not important for the bees.
Yes, yes, it's true. This is the problem that all the beekeepers that they have today, because I see that they make a selection for the production of the honey, of the pollen, of the royal jelly, and all the stuff here, but they don't think about the enemy of the bees, like the varroa and the other
forming
virus and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
but there's no problem with selecting like that. The main thing is that you allow those bees to get exposed to the varroa mites. Where the problem is that the beekeepers don't expose their bees enough to the varroa mites, and they can't select. Selection process means elimination.
yes,
And if you can't eliminate if you don't let the infestation go in.
yes. I see. For example, I see also beekeepers that select for docility. They need a calm bee, a bee that doesn't swarm. So all the characteristics that a bee doesn't need. So
Yeah. Of course, that reminds me also, I had a customer once from Germany. He wished to have bees that stung a lot because he said that people were robbing his honey all the time.
Yes.
And or tossing rocks at his colonies, and so he got some of our French black bees, which at that time were pretty good stingers. And he after that he didn't have any problems with people taking his honey or tossing rocks at his hives.
Yes.
And
Yes.
one time, about 6 months later, a beekeeper came in and told me, said, I got one of your colonies of bees. It's got to be one of yours because it stings so bad. And so he looked at the queen, and sure enough, that was his queen because it was marked.
Oh.
And so he got his swarm back.
Okay. Okay.
And so, but like I say, everyone has. It's just like also before, people used to think we shouldn't have a bunch of propolis in beehives. Now, propolis is according to the work of Mara, the spivak is something very good, a positive to have in a bee hive. And so we have to, as selectioners, we have to be very, let's say, humble and not try to push too much our own ideas. Good honey production and gentleness, but we need to let those bees develop their resistance characteristics.
Your colony were very healthy. They have. I want to explain me better. Your colony, all the colony that you have, they were healthy with plenty resource of nectar and pollen. So the only problem that they need to resolve was varroa.
Yeah.
Or they need to resolve other stuff too.
No, there was many. I think it was many that were there because as a queen breeder, then any colony's genetic material that doesn't produce honey or doesn't resist well gets eliminated. Okay. And so we do that selection all the time, and then also I've been doing a lot of selection also earlier for hygienic behavior in the bees. And so that's cut down a lot of problems. Before, when I started off here in France, sometimes we'd see problems with American foul brood. Now I forget when was the last time I saw a case of American foul brood. Been so long now, and but that's also probably due to the fact that the bees are fairly hygienic also.
Yes.
And maybe also the fact that other beekeepers have been eliminating their colonies with a foul brood, and so there's less foul brood around to infest. I don't know, it's difficult to see. The only way to know is to put foul brood into the colonies and do it. When I was a student at Ohio State University, I worked as a bee technician for Dr. Walter C. Rothenbuehler. Rothenbuehler was one that studied the behavior genetics of American foul brood resistance. And he had some colonies, I know because one of my jobs was counting foul brood skills. Mm-hmm. Some colonies, he'd put in a whole frame of foul brood, and the following day or 2 days later, that frame would be cleaned out and there'd be eggs in that frame and the brood would be normal. He had another line, the Banskoy line, that you put in 5 cells of foul brood and the colony would just get very infected with foul brood. And also I had the advantage at that time in the early 60s to have seen a little bit of what resistance selection could do, for instance, in bee diseases.
Yes. So
that's one of the reasons I wasn't so afraid to select for raw resistance.
Yes, so we can say that the bees, they have genetic characteristic for every problem that they need to solve.
I don't know if they have genetic characteristics for everything. That's but the only way to find out is if there's a problem to see what happens.
Yes.
Of course, if you have some problems with the intestinal flora in your bees, if it's killed out by herbicides or things like that. Just like if you drink a herbicide, you're going to modify your intestinal flora there, and you're going to have some problems maybe with diarrhea or constipation,
yes.
or things like that.
Yes.
That's like when in the States, when we'd go down to Mexico, they called what they had was Montezuma's revenge. That's when an American tourist would go down to Mexico, they get diarrhea.
Okay.
Of course, when the Mexicans would go up to the States, they get diarrhea also. So because there was a change in the microflora in the intestine.
Yes. Can the situation of the beekeeping today get worse if we don't change our methods of doing beekeeping?
Well, this I don't know if it can get much worse or not. Things can always get worse, but they can always get better.
I hope so.
Yeah, well, if you're going to keep bees, you got to be positive also, because you're going to have good years, you're going to have bad years. Some farmers tell me that they have to have a few good years to pay for all the bad years. That's in beekeeping also. You have your ups and downs, and the main thing is you got to be able to adapt and find other solutions. If you
want to continue.
As a beekeeper, I'd suggest good. You have honey production, but maybe if you can do some pollination, other things to spread out your risk. Because when you have just concentrated on one thing, just like this year in France, the beekeeper said it was the worst year for honey production since 40 years.
Also in Italy.
Yeah, and in fact, yesterday I was talking with a young beekeeper who wishes to sell all his bees, take a pause for a year, and then maybe start off again. And it's when you're an older beekeeper, you've gone through periods like that, and you can more or less rebound. But when you're a young beekeeper and you have got your charges and all that stuff, it's difficult to bounce back. But that's where you got to bounce back. You have to make the effort.
Yes. Do you think that the today's world is still hospital for the bees, because with this agriculture, this type of making a lot of crop? No, it's the agriculture doesn't see the bees like insect that can help the farmer.
Well, I'd say maybe that depends on your area. I'll give you a practical example. A number of years back, I think it was in 2013, we had very high mortality in the colonies. And so I had the French governmental lab do an analysis on it, and they found imidacloprid and another chemical in the bees at concentrations that would kill the bees.
Okay.
And so I went to declare that to the gendarmerie, the French police.
Yes.
And then deposed a plaint for the justice, and I got an answer back from the judge saying that your losses are not covered by any laws. We don't have anything that covers that type of damage. But what I did was, at the same time, I sent a copy of my what they call a plainte, or that I sent to the judge, also to the different mayors around my bee yards. And the results, then I got feedback from the farmers asking, what can we do to help to the situation so that you'll have less problems? Because at least in our areas, the farmers don't wish to hurt the bees, and we got some pretty big farms here also around, and often the beekeepers, I think, don't realize that the farmers are in the same boat as what they are. And just like one farmer told me, he said, whatever you do, I hope you find a solution, because I've had enough government controls on my exploitation already, and very, very difficult for him with the paperwork and all the controls.
Yes,
and that.
yes.
What I think is important is that beekeepers realize that they're farmers like the other farmers, and you dialogue, you talk with the farmers and try to find a solution there.
Yes.
And like I say, I've had pretty good contact with the farmers there, and since then we've had a lot less problems due to chemicals. But if the farmers don't know that there's a problem, then they can't do anything. Just like you, if you don't know that your bees are flying out and doing their overwinter flights, eliminating the fecal material on somebody's washing, doesn't bother you. But if you know that, then you try to do something to keep your bees a little bit.
Yes, it's true.
The washing.
It's true. It's true. Do you still play the game where the people, your guest, can count the varroa and you pay him?
Yeah. We last year I think I paid out 4 cents.
Oh, 4 cents, only 4 cents.
Yeah. Well, when we had the World Varroa Challenge, that was in Apicoltura in 2009, I decided to take advantage of the situation. Because with all the people coming in from different countries, we had 55 different people come in, and they found a total of I think it was 109 mites, 109 or 100. Maybe it was 109 mites. I'd have to look on the data there, and most of the people didn't find anything. I said, I had about 10 different bee locations. I said, choose a name of a bee location. We'll drive out and you hunt. And so they did it by random.
Okay.
And so, like I say, most people didn't find anything. Few found a few mites there. And I had to left because the Cleve de Brain from England was a grand champion. He found 20 mites. And he was fighting against Seth Wick from California. And Seth, he found 17. And when Cleve would have a few more mites than Seth, then Seth would work harder. They worked for about 3 or 4 hours hunting for mites. They killed a lot of brood because they'd have to dig into the cells to kill the brood.
Yes.
And so then Seth finally realized that no matter how many mites he found, that if he found more mites than Cleve, then Cleve was going to go out and find some more mites. Cleve was actually helping them move the hives and things so could find the mites. And then the runners up was a fellow from Spain and Ralph Buchler. And when the fellow from Spain found that he was competing against Ralph Buchler, he made certain that he found more mites than Ralph, because he had read the translation of the German work by Ralph and all that, and he was to be there with him right in front on the other side of the beehive, hunting mites. It was very stimulating. And then what we did afterwards, that we'd go in the evening, then sit down and cook something and eat, and then talk a little bit like what we're doing now about what we can do, what you can't do, etc. And we had pretty good contacts that way. And then I gave the 4 top winners a diploma with the number of mites that they had won. And so for Seth, I couldn't present that to him directly. And so I contacted, I think it was the president of one of the California Bee Association meetings. They have a bee meeting for all the beekeepers that bring in their colonies for pollinators, for pollinating almonds. And so I asked him to give that paper certificate to Seth, present it to him. And so the first thing he did, he said, we know there's somebody here that was at the World Varroa Challenge, and Seth, Rick, why don't you stand up and tell us now? Seth, he's over 2 meters tall. He's a pretty tall person. And so he spoke about 15 minutes for what he did, and told me found the 17 mites and that, etc. And then at the end, the president pulled out the certificate and said, "Well, here's your certificate."
Oh my God.
So he was very astounded on that, and but it was very good for the other California beekeepers because they saw what was possible. They had a first-hand, non-biased account from Seth, who had been there, and then like I see Seth presented with his diploma.
Yes.
That was a nice point. I think Seth will never forget that.
How many colonies do you have today?
Today I don't have many. I've been retired since 2006. I still run about 40 to 80 colonies.
Oh, okay. Okay.
What I do is I got a lot of contact with my customers. I still produce queens. I'm cleaning up frames and equipment for the bee season. Okay. And then sometimes I'll come in, I'll go out to my customers and get some genetic material back, and because then they're testing it under much greater, wider area.
Yes,
and so that gives me a better idea. I had one problem last year with the horses. They got into the bee yard out the farm, and they with the hornets. They reduced the size of the colonies, and then the horses went in and they decided they liked to eat honey, and so they went in and kicked over a bunch of colonies and ate the honey. And so, I was able to recover my genetic material because when I sell queens, I write down what I send to the people.
Yes.
And then I've recovered a few lines that the horses had eliminated.
Yes.
Horses, once it develops a taste for honey, then I won't say it's like a drug for them. They go after it. They, especially during the winter time when it's cold, kick over a colony and then come back later on and
yes. You have a website or something like that if our guests they want.
But for my research publications, you can go to ResearchGate, and I've downloaded different publications, and you can get those free of charge on the scientific work and different work we've done there.
And if someone needs a queen, special queen.
Special queen, if they're breeder queens are pretty expensive.
You have a website, so we make a little advertising.
Well, I don't have. I've never had a website. I've had other people that have had websites about me, but I've never had a website. I guess my only website is my big mouth, and that.
Yes, it's true.
But, like I say, we do ship queens around the world. I've shipped queens to China.
Oh.
Real difficult now to ship queens into China because you have to have a certificate saying that there's no varroa mites in the area of 20 kilometers around the colonies.
Oh.
So it's not possible to do that in China anymore.
Yes.
Before that, it was. I've been to China twice, and a friend of mine, Li Jenka, who's done a lot of work on bee genetics out of Beijing. He invited me over to give some talks to Chinese beekeepers, and was interested in bond test also. And so he took me out to a bee yard he had at Mayong Reservoir. This is a place where they store the water for Beijing for Peking. And they have about 40 colonies out there. And I was surprised that the Chinese who were working their colonies without a bee veil, without smokers and gloves or any things like that. Usually I don't use gloves, but I do use a bee veil and a smoker.
Yes.
And so I was working those colonies there, and we did some hygienic tests on it. And I saw that those bees were very, very hygienic. Some of them were 24 hours were 95% hygienic. And I told Leah, I said, you got some real good beelines here. He says, yeah, the daughters that you sold us. They're from Daughter Queens. I was happy that he had not told me before, because that way I could make an unbiased assessment of what what they were, and because it's best not to know things in advance so that you can look at it in a neutral way.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
And so there, like I say, when we flew around to different parts in China, and then I'd start my talk, and then I'd given it so many times that afterwards, and Lee just continued my talk in Chinese. I just put the slide, and then he'd continue, and we had a lot of fun on it. And I like Chinese beekeepers. They're like all beekeepers, and once you know somebody is a beekeeper, you got a lot of things in common with them.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
Even if you don't speak the language, you can speak with your hands.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
If you got the time, I can tell you another little story. I was down in when I was testing bees, the intermets of bees down in Tunisia.
Mm-hmm.
I went down to the center of Tunisia, and we passed what's called an oued. It's a river that crosses the road.
Mm-hmm.
So I passed going down, no problem. But going back up, I was on the low side of the road, and I had a Citroen camionette, a little car there, and the air intake is at the front under the hood. And so I went through the water as usual, and of course the water came into the motor right up to the pistons and got stuck in the middle of the road.
Yes.
And so there's a fellow came by with the truck, and they pulled me out. So they towed me to a garage in Tunisia. The garage was 4 walls with no roof. Well, they don't need it there. It's so dry.
Yes.
They'd probably be happy if a few drops of rain did come down. And so they asked me what I did, and I said, well, I'm a beekeeper, and I'm working up near Hammamet. And one said, oh, my uncle's a beekeeper. He's got his hives 100 meters from here. And so while they were repairing cleaning out the pistons and all that, we went down to visit his uncle there. And I didn't speak any Arabic.
Yes.
Didn't speak any French or English, but we communicated with his hands. And when you say hi,
beautiful.
We understood each other quite well, even though we couldn't connect. Same thing was when I was in Bali. Also, we had that's another story. But
we are millions of beekeepers in the whole world with one passion: the beekeeping.
Right.
It's true. Okay, Mr. Kefuss, it was a wonderful meeting, because we understand a little bit about your secrets. So,
well, what I wish is that people try out the techniques that we do.
I hope
Find
so.
a way to do it, and then let me know.
Okay.
Okay. That way I'll do that. I'll have advance better and have less work to do.
Yes. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for your work, because you are a pioneer, and I can say that you have demonstrated that beekeeping without treatment it is possible. And for this,
last word to Italian beekeepers, I say, you got a lot of good bees in Italy. Why don't you just go ahead and try and select for resistance? You'll get off a lot of those chemicals. At least you reduce your chemical treatments, and you'll advance better. And maybe you won't have so many problems with Alzheimer's disease later on.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Kefuss, thank you very much for your time.
Sure. Okay. Nice job.
Thank you very much for your time. See you the next time, maybe, if you want.
Okay.
See you soon. Thank you very much.
float like a butterfly and sting like a bee.